Okay, let's talk about this one. Uh, whew, 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 whew. If you guys thought the Penn State game had my heart rate up, this game right here got my heart rate up. I did end up leaving Lincoln in time. We left at halftime. It just got really cold. Did end up getting to watch this game. And again, apologies for not being able to post this yesterday, being able to post my prediction videos. I've had a wild, wild week. Next week should definitely end up being back to normal. But as far as this game goes right here, we got some things to talk about. And I want to talk about more than just this game, too. I want to talk about what that last team on the schedule did today there as well. But the important thing is the Buckeyes are able to escape with a win. Was it impressive? In some aspects, I think it was. In other aspects, it definitely was not. And looking across the stat sheet here, there were some good performances. There were some not good performances. We're going to be here to unpack all of it. What's up, Tailgaters? My name is Tailgate Nate. Welcome to my channel. If you are an Ohio State fan, I do one of these after every single game. So, hey, go ahead and hit the subscribe button down there if you are. Even if you aren't, I post college football videos all the time. We talk about a lot of fun things. Hit the subscribe button, ring the bell, comment, like, do whatever you need to do to help support the channel. Heck, you're doing one of them by watching this video. So, let's go ahead and move on. Talking about this game here a little bit between Ohio State and Maryland. I knew and I had said in some of these videos in the past, I believe in pretty much all of them in recent memory. By that, I probably mean from the Penn State game on. I've been saying this. This was not a Maryland team that Ohio State could afford to overlook. And they absolutely showed why in this game, right? Maryland played phenomenal. They played exceptionally well. And in a lot of ways, I thought Maryland was the better team on the field yesterday. How about the game that Taulia had, right? The quarterback for Maryland, he was exceptional. He had a 91.3 QBR, was 26 of 36 passing, 293 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Now, a lot of those were some really good throws from him, but I did also think that the Buckeyes secondary was playing a little conservative. They definitely were backing off a little bit, not necessarily playing as aggressive as they have in some of the past games that they've played this year. Sorry, I just hit my mic, had to fix that. Ohio State has not been that conservative in quite some time, right? They did not play conservative that much against Indiana. They played conservative here today, and it led to some big throws from Taulia, and he played exceptionally well. Ohio State did do a good job at containing the run. The lone rushing touchdown was a Taulia scramble, and that time it was really good coverage just as Taulia ended up finding the zone. But Roman Hemby, only 11 carries, 39 yards, an average of 3.5 yards per carry. And Twain Littleton, 7 carries for 12 yards, 1.7 yards per carry. All in all, Maryland had 31 carries, 84 yards, 2.7 yards per carry. So Ohio State did well against the run, which is going to bode well for next week. And again, we'll talk about that here in a little bit. But Maryland on the receiving end has a lot of weapons. And you know what? Taulia was distributing it everywhere. Dante Demas, 5 catches, 67 yards. Rakim Jarrett, those are their 2 biggest weapons. 3 catches for 65 yards. Ty Felton, 2 catches for 46 yards. Jacob Copeland, 4 catches for 45 yards. Roman Hemby out of the backfield, 4 catches, 37 yards. CJ Dupree, 4 catches for 30 yards. Jayshon Jones, 3 catches for 13 yards and a touchdown. Dupree had a touchdown there as well. Maryland was spreading the wealth all over the field, and that really helped them in this game. It did. It really, really did help them. I thought Maryland played a fantastic offensive game. I really did. Now, could Ohio State's defense have been more aggressive? Yes, it absolutely could have. But here's what good teams do, right? They find ways to win, and Ohio State dominated that third quarter. That's what helped the Buckeyes win this game, was that third quarter. And speaking of the Buckeyes, let's go ahead and move on to the offensive side. I don't know what's been going on with Stroud, but he has just not been as sharp as he usually is, right? Over these past couple weeks, I know, my apologies, Penn State, he was able to turn it on and get going. Northwestern, yeah, you were in hail force winds. You're going to have no luck throwing the ball. Indiana, he got back to form. But this game here against Maryland, it didn't all really click for him, did it? Only 18 of 30, 241 yards, and a touchdown. Did overthrow some receivers. Did have a couple uncharacteristic mistakes from CJ. Now, you do see them trying to incorporate CJ in the run game a little bit more. They called, I believe, one or two designed runs for CJ Stroud. Maybe even more than that. I can't quite remember off the top of my head. And speaking of runs, so they didn't play Mayan Williams in this game, but Ohio State did play Travion Henderson. Only 11 carries for 19 yards, no touchdowns, 1.7 yards per carry, and he got hurt again. Welcome to the story of the season for the Ohio State backfield. It is injury after injury after injury. Hopefully, they both are able and ready to go next week, but who knows if we'll even have one of them at this point. I really have no idea. Mayan Williams seems to be okay. I would expect him to be back next week. Again, they held him out for this game, I'm assuming, for precautionary reasons. And we'll see what happens with Travion Henderson. Hopefully, my apologies, it's nothing too serious. We'll see. I am praying to God that it is nothing serious. He looked like he just had cramps or pulled something or tweaked something. Might have been the same injury that he's been dealing with all season long. But we'll figure out what it is here in the near future. But there was a breakout star for the Buckeyes in this game. Dallin Hayden, the true freshman running back. And after watching him play in this game, I think he is going to be a stud. They just kept feeding him the ball, and he was really effective for this team. 27 carries, 146 yards, 5.4 yards per carry, and 3 touchdowns on the day. Ohio State on the receiving end, Emeka Egbuka had 6 catches for 82 yards. Marvin Harrison, 5 catches for 68 yards. CJ Stroud's lone touchdown pass found Travion Henderson wide open. I don't know how he was that wide open, but he was. Dallin Hayden with a couple catches, Cade Stover with a couple, and Julian Fleming with a couple catches there as well. So, all in all, Ohio State's offense definitely turned it on when it needed to turn things on. Especially doing that in the third quarter. But this defense helped Ohio State win the game. And I'll talk about Maryland's defense here in a little bit. But I thought Lathan Ransom had a very, very good day. I thought Ransom had probably one of the best days out of anyone on the defense. Although there was one better performance, and we'll talk about that here in just a little bit. But Lathan Ransom ended up having a blocked punt. He had 7 tackles, 6 by himself. He ended up defending a crucial pass there as well. A really good defense from Ransom. Also had a tackle for loss there as well, able to blow up a play, making a play on the ball, and then having the punt block. I thought Ransom had a very good day, and he by far was definitely the most aggressive cornerback and safety all game long for the Buckeyes. But there was one better defensive performance. JTT has had his moment in the Penn State game. It is finally Zach Harrison's turn to break out. 5 tackles, 2 by himself. Okay, that's not that big of a deal. But Ohio State, for that part of the Maryland game, again, trying to defend the pass, because that's what Talia was going to run with this Maryland offense. Harrison, we only rushed like 3 or 4. He got home both times. 2 crucial sacks at the end of the game. 1 forced fumble as well that Steele Chambers was able to pick up for a scoop and score. Huge. Zach Harrison was huge in this game, especially late and down the stretch. 2 sacks, had another tackle for loss that he helped assist on there as well. And I thought this run defense played well. This pass defense definitely could have been a lot more aggressive and done a lot more things right. But, hey, not complaining with the result over there. Speaking of Maryland's defense, they were able to hold the run pretty well until Dallin Hayden came in, right? 3.7 yards per carry is what Maryland was able to hold Ohio State to. Emeka Egbuka did have a carry for 1 yard, and CJ Stroud, with everything considered, didn't get sacked, but with everything considered, 4 carries, did have a grand total of -6 yards, which doesn't help the Buckeye rushing attack, but they couldn't stop Dallin Hayden. The Terrapins couldn't stop Hayden. They were able to get him down on the ground for some plays, but as soon as Ohio State's offensive line was able to open a hole, he was gone. Speaking of the offensive line, that just reminded me of a point. This offensive line just didn't play well today. Maryland was able to get in the backfield relatively quickly. They were able to force C.J. Stroud into some throws that he didn't want to make, made C.J. Stroud force some balls in there, made C.J. Stroud throw some balls low, high, whatever have you. This Ohio State offensive line did not have their best day today. Now, they didn't allow a sack. Granted, they didn't allow a sack, but where this effort really, where the, I'm not going to say no effort because especially late in the game, Ohio State ended up turning things on. But with the below average performance for this Ohio State offensive line, it was really noticeable in the run game. They just weren't able to push Maryland's weaker defensive line around. And now, no discredit to the Terrapins at all. They got some absolute athletes on that defensive line for them. But Ohio State just wasn't able to hold them for whatever reason. So, give credit to the Terrapins. Sorry, I'm trying to think of what to say here. I apologize if it's an awkward pause. Give credit to this Terrapins team. I thought they came out, played really good offensively. They played as well as they probably could have defensively there as well, given the talent that is on this Maryland team. And I knew this was a game Ohio State couldn't overlook. Look at what happened in 2018 when Maryland almost beat Ohio State in I believe it was still regulation. If not, it was overtime. They tried to go for 2 to win it, and Ohio State stopped them. Didn't matter. Ohio State didn't reach the playoff or anything like that. This was definitely a nail-biter of a game, but it was that weekend in college football, right? If you were a top 4 team, I wrote about this on my recap on my community tab earlier today, but if you were a top 4 team this weekend, you struggled. Georgia did not play with a lot of heart. Michigan ended up losing Blake Corum. Talk more about that later. And they had to struggle to get by Illinois, relied on Jake Moody. TCU had one of the craziest endings to a football game I've ever seen, running the ball with 17 seconds left, getting the field goal team on, and kicking that game-winning field goal. That's something that very, very few teams are able to pull off as flawlessly as TCU was able to do it. And then notice I said top 4 struggled, but they all found ways to win. If you were team number 5, you got shell-shocked, right? You got curb-stomped. However many adjectives and verbiage you want to throw at it, but Tennessee got rocked. North Carolina ended up losing as well, along with 3 other ranked teams, I believe it was. Ole Miss, Oklahoma State, and NC State all ended up going down, as well as Utah losing, but again, that was to Oregon, pretty good opponent, and UCLA dropping the game, but again, pretty good opponent in USC. It was just mayhem this week in college football, and this was supposed to be kind of the chaos week at the top that sort of kind of happened again with Tennessee going down. That effectively eliminates them from playoff contention, which cleans things up a whole lot in terms of the playoff conversation. But the top 4 teams all struggled in ways, and they found ways to win. Georgia was pretty much in control. They just really didn't play as good as we've seen Georgia play this year, right? Taking a look at some of the team stats for this game that's on my screen right now, Maryland was able to draw even in terms of yards. 402. I've actually outgained Ohio State by a yard. Maryland at 402. Ohio State had 401. Most of those yards for Maryland coming through the air, of course. 8.6 yards per pass. Ohio State had 8 yards per pass. Maryland with a fumble turnover there as well. Ohio State ended up getting more first downs. They were 8 of 15 on third down. Again, 3.7 yards per carry. What also killed Ohio State in this game, and I'm surprised I haven't talked about it, but penalties. Penalties destroyed Ohio State in this game. Let's take, for instance, the blocked extra point that Maryland ended up returning for 2 points. That was a huge difference maker on the scoreboard, by the way. But Ohio State was now going to be up 33-21, and they wanted to go take, well, hey, like pretty much any team would do in that scenario, they wanted to try to go up by an even 14. So Maryland would have to, not just go score twice and kick the extra point and be in the lead by 1. False start. And so that puts the point after try back. Maryland's able to block it, pick it up, and run it the other way. I think my mouth was wide open the entire time that play was going on. I just could not believe it. I couldn't believe the stupid mistake, and I couldn't believe that Maryland was able to get back there, block it, and then return it all the way for two. That was a crazy play. If you are a college football fan, those are the plays that you like to watch. Definitely made me a little nervous, though. But we had 11 penalties for 97 yards. Granted, Maryland had 10 for the same amount of yards. But that's something that Ohio State has got to clean up. Over these games where Ohio State has struggled, they have not been the most disciplined in terms of penalties, and we've made stupid mistakes in crucial situations deep in the red zone. That has got to get cleaned up. Okay, we're done talking about the Maryland game. Let's take a look to next week because, look, albeit Michigan did struggle today, and blatantly, I hate injuries with a passion. If every team were healthy all the time, it would be so much better in the sports world. Obviously, that's not how sports work, but Michigan ended up losing Blake Corum in that game, and he got hit on the knee. A lot of people fearing that it's an ACL or something serious like that. He did end up playing one snap in the second half, but then ended up getting held out for the rest of the game. So I have not read anything on how healthy or not healthy Blake Corum is right now. We'll see, because injuries like that, hits on the knee or around that leg area, can be very scary. They can be scary. What was a good sign to see was he was walking off under his own power, which was a phenomenal thing to see. But then Michigan started to struggle, right? Donovan Edwards is a good back. He's not as good as Blake Corum. In fact, I don't think he's nowhere near as good as Blake Corum is. J.J. McCarthy had his struggles throwing the ball, missed some receivers, albeit there were some drops from his receivers there as well. But Michigan just can't throw the ball. It's an inconsistency, and some may call it an inability. So if they don't have Blake Corum healthy and ready to go next week, that could be devastating to this Michigan team. But I'll even sit here and say I think Michigan is the more physical team. So especially having Blake Corum back is going to make the game a whole lot more interesting. Now, obviously, Ohio State has the motivation factor, and they've seen that score 42-27 haunt them. I know it's a lot of the players' lock screens. It's in the locker room. It's in the cafeteria. It's in the weight room. It's everywhere, right? That 42-27 score has not left the mind of these Buckeyes one bit. But Michigan definitely is the more physical team, and there are people that can make a case why Michigan could definitely end up winning that game. I think if Blake Corum is healthy, and if JSN is ready to go, and if the Ohio State backfield gets healthy, again, there are a lot of ifs. But with right now, with what we know, I think, read the caption up there, this has game of the century potential. I mean, what could be better than this? 2 versus 3, Ohio State and Michigan are undefeated. The first time that's happened since 2006. They'll be playing each other. The big noon game on Fox. College Game Day is going to be there. This is the most important game of the college football season. And yet somehow both can still end up making the college football playoff. Tennessee losing helped. They might need some other help as well. Notre Dame plays USC next week. If TCU loses the game, that may help there as well. If Clemson drops the game, there's still, again, a lot that can happen over these next couple of weeks. Last week of the regular season next week, and then moving into conference championship week there as well. So, look, this is going to be a very, very interesting game next week. We'll see who's healthy, who's not. That'll come at a later date, probably end up being in my weekly preview predictions, which is going to be back this week. I'm sorry. It was just so much running around, trying to get everything sorted out, get ready for break, prepare everything for volleyball. I had a lot of radio and broadcasting. It was just a mess this week, pretty much like a Murphy's Law week for me. So I really, really do apologize for that. But weekly predictions will be back. I can't wait to predict the Ohio State-Michigan game, as well as some of the other fantastic rivalry games that we are going to see around the nation next week. But looking at this game, again, kind of recapping what we saw. Surface level, this definitely was a win that Ohio State needed to get. And here's one thing, right? I was watching this game, and now I don't think it was any of these things, which I very well could be wrong. It's just not what I believe was happening. I just believe that Ohio State underestimated this Maryland team, and Maryland was able to put on a show. But anyway, back to my point. Was Ohio State not trying to give Michigan any film? Because Ohio State was playing pretty conservative. I was not impressed with the way the Buckeyes played this game. Were they just trying to not give Michigan film? Right? That was running through. Now, again, it's not what I think happened, and I definitely don't think Ohio State was looking ahead to Michigan. Some may argue that. Some may argue Michigan was looking ahead to Ohio State. But again, there's an explanation for everything. Talia played a fantastic game. Ohio State was not able to run the ball as effectively. The offensive line did not have a great day. C.J. Stroud was a little bit off. That in part due to the Maryland defensive front seven getting pressure. But, right? Was Ohio State just not trying to give Michigan film? I wonder if Ohio State has a couple plays up their sleeve and a couple little tricks that Michigan is not going to see coming. Granted, Michigan is going to have the exact same thing. So that game next week is going to be very, very interesting for sure. That was the one point that I had forgotten to talk about there as well. But I think that's going to do it for this video. That was my Ohio State fan reaction to the Maryland game. The Buckeyes survive a tough road test. Now it's on to the game with game of the century potential. And who knows, maybe these two teams could end up rematching in the college football playoffs somewhere down the line. But with all that being said, thank you guys so much for watching. Please interact and support the channel any way you can. You already did one by watching this video. Subscribe, like, comment, do anything you can. And remember to play hard, but tailgate harder. Top 25 comes out on Tuesday. Goodbye.